Hi, Zizaran here, and this is another bait build by Garatha. If you've enjoyed his builds in the past, and they've been actually really amazing and well received in general, this is going to be a spicy starter for you. This is something I recommend a little bit more to intermediate players because we are most likely going to be starting off using the transfigured gems on this build, and it's looking really good, really exciting. This is going to be actual poison hit Caustic arrow using the new T-gem, and he's been trying it out a little bit early before even having the new T-gem, and he was saying it looked really good. So we're gonna have some footage from him in a second here. But yeah, interesting new build. So if you don't want one of the traditional league starters, this could end up being really strong. Now obviously starting something unknown is a little bit risky, but you are a ranger ascending as Pathfinder, so you have so many backup options like toxic rain, etc. So you don't have to worry about having to reroll something else. If videos like these help you have a great league start, please consider subscribing and supporting both me and Garatha. We really appreciate it, and thank you so much. So now, let's have a little bit of a video from Garatha showing how he thinks the build is going to play.
So how does this build play while mapping? Honestly, this build is really simple for mapping. You just spam your Caustic Arrow and Mana Forge will proc automatically as long as you're spending mana. Or in our case, Life Tap, which makes it go off without spending any mana at all. So super easy. You just attack and Mana Forge will proc on cooldown. Now, the main reason I enjoyed this over Totems, for example, is Totems die a lot, especially on hard content like Ultimatum or like really hard bosses, and you'll have to resummon them constantly. With Mana Forge, you just attack and go. You don't really have to worry about your totems dying, you don't have to worry about your totem uptime, you just attack mobs and dodge damage. Really good for things like Ultimatum. When you get to a really hard monster, you don't want to press down Arcanist Brand. This will proc your Despair and Temp Chains. And honestly, this is really the only button you have to press.
So we're using Path of Building like normal. So if you're not familiar with it, we do have a video showing how POB works. If you are, it is very normal with step-by-step showing where to put skill points early. And then there's like a mid-game one and an end-game one with different clusters once you get that. Obviously, clusters aren't the easiest to roll on day one, so might take you a little bit of time. Now, he did say that the damage might be more, it might be less. It's a little bit unknown. The damage here looks insane with 18 million, but there are a lot of unknowns for the build. If you go to skills, early on you're leveling with Caustic Arrow. If you are a veteran player, you're probably very familiar with just Caustic Arrow, Pierce, etc. Very good leveling experience. You get Toxic Rain at level 12. So it is pretty straightforward. And again, this is not a super beginner guide, more a little bit for veteran players who want something spicy and something new now with so many new things on the table that we can actually play around with. There is mid-game links and end-game links as well. And we are using Mana Forged arrows, and it'll be a big part of the build. If you're not familiar with Mana Forged arrows, your main skill does need to cost mana, but your Mana Forged Arrow skill does not need to cost mana. So you can get your Mana Forged Arrow to cost nothing or to be life tapped. We go over to the item sections. There is early game gear, which is pretty simple. You're just going for fizz. And do remember, we have the rustic sash recipe that you can use as well. You need either a magic or a rare rustic sash, and then a blacksmith whetstone, and then a weapon. We do still want to go for pretty high attack speed things because we are focusing on poison. Then all the other gear, pretty straightforward. It's mostly life and resist early, and there's no crazy uniques that we need super early. If you're a hardcore player, however, you will probably be trying to farm a lightning coil pretty fast, and the new bark skin might end up being really interesting for dealing with fizz mitigation early. I'm actually going to be looking into that on a lot of my builds as a hardcore player that struggle with fizz early, and especially if you have a bunch of armor and evasion. Mid-game gear is basically more of the same, and we are hoping to farm the tincture for the new Wildwood Ascendancy that is all damage from hits with this weapon can poison, and that makes it really strong. And the new transfigured Caustic Arrow looks super cool as well. And now, so this is not going to be your traditional damage over time Caustic Arrow, it is going to be a actual hit based with poison. So very cool. Looking forward to seeing this. Garatha's had a lot of spicy builds. Some of you might have played his Glacial Hammer from last league, which was one of the most played things in super meta. And a lot of my friends ended up playing that too, and it was super strong. Very cool to see. So we get some spicy builds from Garatha here, so make sure you check him out on Twitch. We're going to be using Taste of Hate as well as soon as you can get one, and Dying Sun. Now, Lightning Coil, very easy to farm. Taste of Hate, less so easy to farm, but thankfully it is farmable in Carcass and Core. I do recommend Carcass, Core is awful. In the endgame, it's just more and more crazy gear. A good example on getting weapons like this is actually Rog. He sometimes gets an option with upgrade every stat to its fullest potential, and that is actually how you can achievably get a bow like this. Whereas with Essence Crafting, you're probably not going to get it. All the other gear is very similar to things like Toxic Rain, etc. So if you've played builds like that, you're already familiar with a lot of the gear crafting. And we are Pathfinders. We have a lot of the Pathfinder tech, and we have like perma flasks, etc. We have a bunch of jewel examples in the build as well. Go to notes. There's a little bit on how to level, how are you getting a 40 storm rain, etc. And all of the information you should need. And if you go to notes, there's a lot of information here, like how to level, where do we get poison chances, an elemental bow, class setup, and lots of information you could need here. So, Garatha, I noticed that we have Master Surgeon, but we don't have a life flask.
Okay, yeah, so basically you have two options. You can run Master Surgeon with a life flask and drop either the Topaz or the Quicksilver. I don't really recommend dropping the Quicksilver, but theoretically you could run a Topaz with Move Speed and have all three of them. I think if you're playing it like on hardcore, maybe you would do that. On softcore, I would never drop a Quicksilver though. The other option is to use no life flask and don't go Master Surgeon. You'd grab the 5% flask effect instead. Now, if you do that, you really need to get the Flask Mastery for 4% life, as well as enemies hit give you charges on the flask. This is very important, otherwise you're just going to fall over.
Awesome. The bandits for this build is you kill them all. Pretty much no build really helps them anymore. There are some exceptions where Alira is helped, but generally most of the builds that we make are so tight on skill points. For the Major God, we're going to do Brine King, and remember you can upgrade the Avoid to be Frozen by Fragment of Winter to get freeze immunity. For the Minor God, we have Soul of Garakan with reduced shock effect. And for the super endgame stuff, Garatha will do a follow-up video, which will be on his channel. So make sure you check out that and stay tuned. It should be really good. I'm excited to see how this build plays out. Another really good thing for this build is that Garatha is league starting it. So you can drop by his channel, see how it's progressing, ask him, see whatever's changing and what he's learning on the way. And that's the great thing about following a build by an experienced creator like Garatha, is that he makes pretty much every build work, and at least he'll be quite ahead of you if it doesn't work. So you'll figure it out quickly, and it'll be cool to see and follow how this works. So make sure you follow him on Twitch. Does really good content, deserves a lot of love, and it's been doing some really cool guides lately. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this collab with Garatha. Again, make sure you check him out. It should be really cool, and I'm excited to see how it turns out. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. More importantly, try to die less than I do.